Well, today's tree is the Pacific Madrone. Madrone grows on the west coast of the United States, from British Columbia all the way down through the Santa Cruz Mountains. I'm not sure how far south it goes, but it's a fairly common tree in our area, but it's also a very, very sensitive tree to being developed around. And sadly, this grand old giant died. They also have this big oak tree, which is it's a live oak. It's a canyon live oak. It's different than the agrifolia. They get quite huge. Well, the tree was extremely brittle and extremely dangerous to take down, so the only way I would do it comfortably was with the bucket truck. So we got the job to take this tree down, and it was a little sketch because it was right next to the house, but we weren't on a very flat and level area. Getting the tree in there was a little tight, or the bucket truck in there to work on the tree was a little tight. The job went well, everything was good. The client was a little bit different. They gave us this note, and the one thing about this note that really got me was no wood chips on the property. And their reasoning was, they said that wood chips were a fire hazard. And no matter how hard I tried to convince them, they were sure that wood chips on the ground were a fire hazard. Well, as you can see in the background here, the real fire hazard in this property was all the grass and the weeds that were not controlled, and the fact that they live in the forest, that's also the biggest fire hazard. Wood chips, if they're spread out on the ground, even up to 6 inches or so thick, I suppose they could burn if you really worked at it, but because there's no airspace in there, it's not a volatile fire hazard. But it's really important for the health and the root development of these trees. Now, this particular tree was developed, and around it was developed. The house was put in, and the area was kept scraped of all the natural mulch. In the background, you can see a healthy madrone, and even though they said no wood chips, I finally talked them into putting the wood chips down over around the other madrone tree. I said it would help that tree out considerably, and she agreed to it. The irony of it was, once she saw how pretty it was, she wanted more wood chips to be brought in around the other oak tree on the top, which we didn't have. We didn't have enough of them, but I recommended it highly. Jorge did a great job. The team worked really well. I was really concerned because there was a skylight there, and the wood is quite fragile, quite brittle. It's very heavy as well. Even the deadwood was very, very heavy. So we roped everything down to itself, and fortunately there was another limb from the oak tree that went up and above. And under this tree, there were a lot of obstacles. There were a lot of rocks and a lot of roots and concrete, and there was a bench, and of course the house. So I didn't even want to drop small pieces of firewood because they'd bounce into the house and cause damage. So we spent the day up there, and the job was not to take the tree all the way down to the ground. It was just to take it down to a stump. They liked the look of the stump, and I told them that the stump would be perfectly safe up there. It actually even had a little tiny bit of life on it, so maybe it'll sucker out somewhat. I doubt it, but it would have been an awful lot of extra work. I believe they were on a budget, so just cutting it down, getting the tree to a position where they could say it was safe was what they were looking for. The weather was quite hot up here this day, and it was dry, and all in all, the job went, like I said, went pretty smooth. It was just chunk after chunk. Oh, on the positive side, a neighbor came over and said they wanted the firewood from the tree, which turned out to be a blessing. He even told us, he said, don't worry about cutting it up into small pieces. So I was able to go get the bobcat, and we were taking 4 and 6 foot lengths of wood and put him into the back of my bobtail dump truck, and I ended up running 2 loads of wood over to his house. There's a view from the inside of the bobcat. I had to keep moving wood as we were going. She also had another interesting request. You see that twisty branch up on the left there? She wanted that to be saved. And I said, well, I don't have anything really safe to rope it down to, so I'll take 2 6-foot sections. And apparently she's got an artist friend that has an idea to do something with it. I certainly hope they're able to save it and turn it into something presentable. Madrone wood really is interesting because a lot of times the branches will twist and turn and grow very irregularly, which makes the lumber value of this wood often not very suitable. However, if you have a straight grain piece of madrone, the wood can be absolutely gorgeous. It's very difficult to cure as it shrinks and twists. It also, you can see how quickly it cracks. So you have to process the wood quite quickly after you cut it down and sticker it and put it in a nice dry spot. There's the second piece that she wanted to be saved for art. Boy, I sure hope they save it and turn it into something good. She also had a small child, and she requested 9 pieces of firewood that they could stack in a circle, and they wanted between 1.5 foot and 2.5 feet, and I think they wanted some sort of a thing that they could jump on all the way around. So all the wood went to the neighbor with the exception of these few specialty pieces of wood. And I'm not going to show you the very, very end. We went about another 5 feet below this, and that was the whole job. But the risk of fire up here is so great that they really need to get somebody up there with a grass whip. But even with the grass whip, you can see that the whole area is so volatile and so explosive. God help us that we don't have any big fires up here, because fires are devastating right now.